little bit late today. We've had some technical difficulties, but we've made it through. I'm here today with my business bud, Chikumo, and she is a whiz and so brilliant at all things marketing. She's run so many different businesses herself. She's the behind the scenes on so many more. And I just cannot wait to hear all the nuggets that she's going to bring to us today. But first, Chikumo, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got started in business in your biz journey, which I know has been lots of pieces.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for having me, firstly. It's really funny because I describe myself now as a content creator turned accidental influencer turned marketing agency owner. And even in terms of like where I see myself on the marketing agency side as a consultant, I've completely just changed what I'm doing because I'm trying to find a way to kind of grow a business, grow myself, but not have to be in it day to day. So in terms of like starting off as a content creator, my first business was in food. I am a baker by profession, I suppose, because that's what I did for so long. I started mostly muffins when I was 15. Because I wanted to go to the cinema. That was literally it. My mum and dad my mum had been teaching me to bake, but my parents had said, "Right, you can go if you can raise your own money." And because mum had taught me to bake and I'd been so proud of what I was making, I went to school with like the dilemma of, what do I do? They've actually said yes, but I can't afford to go. So they agreed back then that it would be a muffin a pound. That's how I went to the cinema and then realised, actually, I get to do whatever I want if I've got money. And if I'm setting the rules in terms of running my own business, it's even better because no one's telling me when I need to work, what I need to do. So as time went on, and this is going to be a shorter version because honestly, there's been so much. I started that business, went really well, I failed my first year of A-levels, went to a college where I entered a competition and I got to go to Moscow as one of the winners. It was a business competition. The business competition, one of the people that was on the board ended up being at my uni. So I decided because I wanted to do biomedical engineering. And my mum and dad were like, you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to college for like 5:30 to start baking for 6. There's no way that you can have a business and do something completely different. You're just going to burn out. So I decided to do business. And one of the people that was on the panel saw that's where I was. And she was just so helpful, put me in touch with people where I went to ask, because again, I thought because I'd failed my first year of A-levels that I was so behind with like from my friends and I was being left. And obviously looking back now, I'm like, everything happens for a reason and there's no like specific time that you're all supposed to do things. But my panic then was, okay, I've lost a year compared to my friends. So rather than do a year's placement at uni, let me do 4 lots of 6 months because we get so much time off in the summer at uni. I might as well just spend that time working. So I went and asked for some advice from a woman that had a gluten-free company. And she basically said, yes, you can potentially do some work with us in the summer. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call saying, oh, do you want to help us do some big show? We're really stuck. And somehow I went from helping them bake to becoming one of their consultants and a freelancer. So that was my first way of getting into freelance work. So I started working in MPD and became, I can't remember, I got to like choose my own title, which was so cool. But I used to go and pitch to supermarkets. So I'd work on a product from start to finish, go and pitch it to the supermarkets. So these are like your top like supermarkets that everyone knows, but I can't say them, NDAs. And then obviously once that was then approved, they would then like work away and do whatever needed to be done. So I then realized that actually these baking mixes I was creating for this company, they were gluten-free. Most people are like, gluten-free is rubbish. And I started to realize that I could create my own version that wasn't gluten-free, because when we'd go and pitch the supermarkets, you'd have the gluten-free version and the supermarket's own brand. And the supermarket's own brand, I was like, this is absolutely rubbish. Because as a baker, everyone I ever talked to grew up with family, some kind of family member that baked when they were a kid. So we all have some kind of memory where you walk into the house, it smells amazing, it's very clearly home baked. And not everyone has the time to do that. So if you don't have the time, make something that people can at least feel is going to be very close to what we're trying to do. And the supermarkets weren't doing it. So I was like, I can do a better job. And I kind of put that to my, like to the side for a while. Worked for them for a while, and then my dad got ill. So that's how I ended up in Belfast. But at that point, I'd started a blog, learned when I moved that I could make money from it. And there was just so much where I was like, I just want to, whilst my dad's ill, I just want to be a daughter for a year, do my master's. And I did that in international business and then see where that takes me. And then obviously learned that you can make money from blogging. So I was like, okay, this is great. Let me find a way. I tried to niche, couldn't niche. I found a way to kind of incorporate my life in terms of, I followed a lot of advice that people give you and found it didn't work for me. So I think I've just always worked out that I needed to find my own way to build a business, to make a business work. Again, even if I was in, like I worked whilst I was at uni, I had that as part-time work as a consultant. I had my business. So there was so much that I had to do to manage my time and my days that I realized I can be really efficient in 24 hours. If people allow you to be efficient and work the best way that you can, let's do that. But let me build my business so I can do that. So yeah, that went from me moving to Ireland or Northern Ireland and then starting this like blogging journey even more, getting paid for doing that, and then decided I was going to stay. So it's now nearly 7 years since I thought I'd be here for a year. When the pandemic was happening, I'd started my own baking mix business. But when the pandemic started, like if you look in my office, all of this in the background was just baking stuff. Like I've still got baking stuff in here, but I just realized it was a lot of stress. And unless it's a service-based business, when you've got physical products, when there's an increase in price of stuff, it just becomes really stressful. And I just thought, what's turned from a passion project into my work, I'm now hating. So I sat down with a friend, we looked at everything I was doing, and we realized that I'd worked with so many amazing brands like The Body Shop, like B&M stores, just loads of people where I could look at it and go, I'm a videographer, I'm a photographer, I'm all these things. This is already a marketing agency with people without people even knowing. At the moment, it's just me. So let me take the 15 years of experience nearly that I've had and do better for that. Put the other businesses to one side until I'm ready and then come back to it. So I hired my first VA because I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake I did in the past where I tried to work and do that. I'm going to go in this full time, hire a VA, start from the beginning, just figure it out. Like finance wise, I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I just knew that if I wanted to build something, I needed to start building a team. So yeah, that's kind of where I am now. So I've done the baking mixers, started an agency, I work with amazing clients, but now my next stage of it is I realize that a lot of people are similar to me where they're multi-passionate. And if they're multi-passionate, they don't know how to make all of their businesses work with their brand and their personal brand. So let's take that pain point away. Hire me as your consultant to figure out your life. And I laugh and I always say now that I use my trauma to help people because I've always thought that as a firstborn in an immigrant family that's gone through whatever trauma I've gone through, I looked at that in the past as like a bad thing. Whereas now I'm like, actually, I'm really good at seeing how people can make the businesses work, how people are in general. If you're not okay, I know by texting. If I talk to you frequently, I know by texting you're not okay. So I've got a client at the moment who I'd literally messaged earlier saying, before we have our call on Monday, we need to check in because I need you to kind of know where we are and I need to know how you're doing. And then when it comes to Monday and we're looking at your marketing, whatever my team's going to be doing, you need to be in the mental space that you know that it's going to be okay. So yeah, I work with multi-passionate entrepreneurs that are trying to just figure out how to make their businesses work and take a step back, but also use marketing as a form to help them with sales and to build a business. So yeah, very long-winded, but that's a very short version, which is really weird, but that's what I do.
It is a really short version, but it's because for your age, you've been running a business from like a very, very early age. So for your age,
Yeah.
you've done a lot more than people. You and I are at a similar age. You've ran a business for a lot longer than I have, right? Like I've been doing this for 5.5 years. You have ages on me.
Yeah.
And as anybody who runs a business knows, things evolve, things like in your life, in our markets, in our industries, in the world. Like we're constantly pivoting for those reasons and more. So it's really cool to see that. That's a whole. So I had to fill out an application today for an award I'm trying to get, and they asked, and I was talking about the spirit of entrepreneurship, and that's it. It's this ability to pivot and pick ourselves up and support other people and collaborate and do these things that I don't think bigger businesses do as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So today we are talking all about marketing and how it's related to your website. So this whole series is about how to make your website the best it can be.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about driving traffic to your website through your marketing, right?
Perfect.
So starting out, my first question is for people who, because marketing can feel like this big amorphous thing in a business, right? So what is marketing like in its simplest form for a small business?
To me, it's what's your story? To me, marketing is tell your story, sell a product or service whilst you tell that story, and find a way to do that to a market that understands you ultimately. And I think that's why a lot of people get it wrong, because to me, your business is your baby and it's you've thought about it and it emulates you in so many ways that you don't realize. That a lot of people want to make it big will go, I think I know what my target market is, build out this thing that has nothing, like doesn't even reflect who they are as a person, and then try to win someone over that even they don't engage with, they don't see see themselves reflected in. So to me, marketing is tell your story and have people that are like you find your story and buy from you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to market from a place of when you're not aligned with
Yeah.
any of those pieces, whether it's you're not authentically telling your story, your
Yeah.
services don't feel right for you, or you
Yeah.
doing something because you think you should, which I think, especially when you're in the first couple years of business, there's
Yeah.
so many times people do what they think they should, like you were saying about niching.
Yeah.
Like there was a, I was talking about this on another one of these streams, but there was a period in like the online business world where everybody was screaming to niche.
Yeah.
And that's just like we're like I know you're saying you work with multi-passionate. Thing is everyone is multi-passionate. If you're not,
Yeah.
you're a really boring person, right?
Yeah.
Like, which is I think I've struggled so long, and I don't think it was bad for me, but I went from doing systems work to being really overwhelmed with that because it
Yeah.
was so bitty the way I was doing it at the time. And then to doing website work, which is a system, which is why I loved it.
Yeah.
Um, and doing just these, a couple projects a month, really getting to dig in deep. And I loved that, and I still do. And then
Yeah.
going to this, what I'm offering now, which is more systems work, but on a done with you, um, really custom basis. And
Yeah.
it's still a project that has an end date. And for a couple of clients as opposed to lots of clients. So it's
Yeah.
this, and the reason I've had to do this is because you're right. I couldn't, like, this is going to sound like such a weird thing to say. I don't give a crap about websites. I don't. I love them because they're a system and I love systems.
Yeah.
But they were just at the time the best way I could see to sell systems because people
Yeah.
usually get why they need a website.
Yeah.
I'm good at taking a lot of content and making it pretty, right?
Yeah.
I'm really good at organization. I'm really good at setting up systems through your website and beyond that make your business work better.
Yeah.
So I think it's taken me 5 years in business to come, well, a good 3 years since I was like, okay, I'm doing websites, to come full circle and be like, all right, I'm doing systems again properly this
Yeah.
time in a way that isn't going to drain me.
Yeah. And I know you said it's weird, but it's not weird because I looked at myself and went, actually, what am I doing? I like helping people realize that they can do whatever they want in life, like live your life on your own terms. But I just happened to do that. In the past, I used to do that through baking and found different ways to feed people, to look after them in that way, and then to teach them that they could learn how to bake. They could bake for themselves if they wanted to. There are other ways they could be creative. And now it's like, actually, I help people figure out their life, whether it's in business or just at home. But similarly, like I create systems, and I never thought of myself as a systems person. But at the same time, I look at what you do and go, but I'm not, as much as I like systems and telling people what to do, I don't like actually I like the idea part of it, but I don't like the creating part of it. So when I'm
You're
working
the
at,
like high level vision person, and I'm
yeah,
the nitty gritty details. Like this is
and
how it's
you're
going to function thing.
exactly, and you're currently in my budget for what systems do I need, because I don't want to actually do that part. I just want to tell you what I want to do, sit with you and be like, oh, this looks really nice, I love this, and then be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm good at. Like, and I think that's so interesting that we can do similar things, but at very different places.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so marketing is telling your story and using that story to sell whatever you're selling, right? And the thing
Yeah.
is the story, like usually if you've created a product, you're probably created the product because you saw a gap in the industry and it annoyed
Yeah.
you, or you wanted something that was better.
Yeah.
Um, if you're selling a service, it's because it's something that you, even if like say I don't give a crap about websites, I deeply care about knowing that people have a system, and I also a place that their messaging and home base and their clients, like,
Yeah.
essentially I love the websites for the fact that it is this home base for a website or
Yeah.
for a business. So like they tie together naturally if you let them, is I guess my
Yeah.
point. But it can be so easy to get like wrapped up in the shoulds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in all of those things, that we know that there's like a lot of different types of marketing, right? I
Yeah.
actually used to, when years ago, and it might still be out there, but there was a woman who would tell people what types of marketing would suit them and their personality based on their Myers-Briggs personality test.
Oh.
Yeah, she was really, it's called Marketing Personalities. She might still be out there, but I remember finding that years ago and being like, that is brilliant, because when I took the test, it said I am good at creating communities.
Yeah.
So things like this where I'm just chatting suit
Yeah.
me really well.
Yeah.
Like,
Same.
whereas something like something like doing ads just doesn't suit my personality type.
No.
There's lots of other options of this, right? Like I used to create blogs. I realized energetically it really messed with my head. Whereas I can talk on YouTube and turn that into a blog, no
Yeah.
problem, right? So how does someone decide which options are going to suit them?
If you're not working with someone that works in that field, so I'd always say if someone comes to me for a discovery call or has booked a power hour, I will always say try the different things and see what works for you. Because ultimately, until you try it, you're not going to know, like you'll know straight away how your body feels. You're either going to create a lot of it, like you've said, you found that you can actually write blogs, but you need to do the talking piece first. So you wouldn't have known that if you didn't try it. And I think where people sometimes go wrong is the fact that they try to figure everything out. Whereas I realize, delegate. In everything, delegate. Work with someone that can sit and have the conversation with you straight away and know this is where you fit in. So, for example, a lot of the clients I work with, we work on organic content because that's where I specialize. So not only do I specialize in social media content, I specialize in organic content specifically. So technically I have niched, but niched in a way that it doesn't feel like I'm niching because I still get to do everything else if I want to, but I just know that that's what I enjoy. And if I enjoy doing that for myself, because again, like I'm pretty sure I even talked about, like, when you were on my podcast, we were talking about like mindset and that type of stuff. And then had someone on either the week before you or the week after you that talked about how you view yourself and like your mindset when it comes to things like making money in business, creating content, and your own limiting beliefs. And I kept saying, I'm really bad at sales. And I focused on being bad at sales, not thinking, actually, my form of marketing is telling my story, building a community from me by me doing it, because then people learn that way. And that's how I do it. And lo and behold, that's how I get sales. I wake up and I have emails. I might not have reached out to brands, to potential clients. And those are the sales that I get through. And the more that I'm trusting that I can actually do that, the more I'm figuring out that actually organic content is how I do that. But then next stage is, but what does that organic content look like? And because I believe as well, for me, and you've talked about authenticity. I think that you have to authentically show up online. And if you are trying to build something, it's this year, that's when loads of people are saying that, oh, businesses don't need to be super polished when they put out content. People want to see vulnerability, authenticity, all these things. I've said that for years, but it's just that now it's coming, oh, it's fashionable. And obviously we'll always have cycles where those types of things happen. However, when you stick to knowing where you fit best. There are some people that, especially in like the user-generated content community, there'll be content creators that will create content specifically for ads because they know that that's what they're best at doing for brands. And if that's you, completely be you. But I think if you're going to spend money on anything first, spend it on delegating to someone rather than spending it on things like ads, because ads will pay and get you something for a particular amount of time. But the way the algorithms work is that they want you to keep feeding money into them. So unless you figured out how to do it for free, you'll then spend more and more and more money because you think that's what you need to keep doing. And is it always going to work? No.
Yeah, but I kind of want to backtrack a little because it seems like we're talking mostly socials here. And that's important. Socials is usually one of people's marketing channels because it's free.
Yeah.
But there are so many others, right? We've got podcasting, we've got blogging,
Yeah.
we've got guest podcasting, guest blogging. You've got things like your newsletter, you've got paid ads, which I'm talking about next week with Peter Doak. You've got user-generated content. Like there's so many marketing channels out there. And that's I feel like I've literally hit the tip of the iceberg. Like there's so many ways you can do. There's just networking, event marketing, like there's product marketing, right? I've heard the thing about like this isn't mine. I mean, this is mine, but like this is a pen that it has a business's name on it. And I've heard that a branded pen can change hands 7 times. That's marketing. That's marketing. Right? We have a friend who that's what her business does, is making things like this pen. So I think it's really, how do you find those things that are right for you? And I think you answered it in part. You said you have to try things, right? That's part of being an entrepreneur, is experimenting. And what works for this season of your business might not be the same thing that works for the next season of your business. But also I think it's so funny because I've always been a chatty person, always been a bit of a loud and charismatic. Got asked to try out for the cheerleading team, didn't, because I was really conservative back then and I thought the skirts were too short. But also it's taken me this long to feel comfortable being just me on camera. And I started this journey, I've done YouTube lives, I've done YouTube tutorials, I've done courses, and I've done podcasting and all these things. But it all started with me practicing by being just on stories, right? Talking on stories so that I don't care what people see or say about me. But so I guess it's balancing that, what feels good and what you're naturally good at, but might have to work through, like you said, a little bit of a limiting belief or some discomfort to grow into that.
Exactly. And I also think you've touched on a point that I even completely skipped over. Everything you've said, like you've said, I have a podcast. We'll be starting another one. The way I make money from brands is because I will wear the brands. Like right now, we all know my onesie's here. I will wear a brand and I will tag them when I'm wearing them. That's how I get seen by some of these people. Like you've said, that pen that you're holding, word of mouth goes so far that you're being talked about in rooms that people don't know you're being talked about, and your products are being talked about in rooms that people don't know. So when I'm advising content creators on when to start, yes, we might be talking about socials, but I always say, look around your room. What could you create content for? It could be that I use this every single day because my lips are always dry. So let me find a way to create content around that. I'm always drinking a cup of tea. Always have a mug next to me. This is a Starbucks one. Right now, it says Moscow, so I never show the other side. But there are so many things that can be done, like the blogging side of it, I think where people get overwhelmed, I suppose the reason I focus mostly on socials is because that's where I specialize in, and find that most people are trying to then figure out where to go next, whether it's websites, blogging side of it, and all of that. However, I think that's where it is really important to speak to people that have done it and do it, because in everything we've talked about, from everything we've said, I've taken a break at the moment from the podcast because I need to have guests on. However, I don't have a good enough system right now to get the emails for the people. I've got a team. I don't have a system for the emails to get to my team member to send them out, because I have to put them on. And when I'm stressed, I don't do that. So I could build all the best systems in the world, but if I'm factoring myself being in that day to day, it's not going to get done. I have got maybe 4 months worth of content. having looking at writing blogs and doing different things, again, I know that I'm not that great at doing it. So I think when you look at yourself first and you go, like you said, is it easy for me to sit and write? Do I actually want to try showing up on camera? If I want to try showing up, do I need to do that maybe on a story first because I know it disappears? Or do I need to go and start just a blog and be completely anonymous? There are different ways to start, but there are so many ways that actually speak to someone that knows what they're doing and has done it, and then kind of figure it out, because ultimately you'll end up having a mix of everything. Because I've had websites, gone away from it, I'm going back to it. It all works together as a funneling system.
Yeah, so you said a few things that I want to touch on there. First was you said you can do something anonymously. And you can short term. People more and more want to know who they're working with. So you don't have to have video or have your face in everything you need to do, but your website should have multiple pictures of you, which is something I'm always harping on clients about.
Exactly.
Because people buy from people. But also you said you will eventually, and this is something you and I both have, like, loads of marketing channels. We didn't always have loads of marketing channels. You build up to that. You try things. Like, I've got a podcast that I also put on hold, but this series that's on YouTube, which is one of my more recent, this is really what's working for me. Those are also going on my podcast. So I'm getting a season 4 out of this, and I don't really have to try that hard. So multiple channels are important in the long run because you cannot put your eggs in one basket. Especially a social media basket where you're dependent on an algorithm, or you're dependent on it not going down, or you're dependent on however Meta's feeling that week.
I normally advise to find 2 platforms that you're comfortable with, no matter what medium that is, and then try to make those 2 work together. So I was on a call with a client, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, so she's struggling at the moment she's worried about what other people think. So one of the suggestions was on TikTok, because I follow her on TikTok, and this is someone that I've known for quite a long time. I know that she creates TikToks quite easily, but she's scared of what people are going to think on Instagram. However, I understand that on Instagram, she doesn't want to start writing blogs. Eventually, she wants a website, but to be able to get something even on the website, you kind of need to know yourself first, because ultimately, like you said, if you're putting your face on a website, what story you're telling, you need to know the story you're telling before that, so practice somewhere else. So my advice has been, go to stories, even if you're just posting the TikTok on the stories and it disappears after 24 hours, you're only uncomfortable for a very short period of time before you realize, actually, it's not that bad. And then let me try something else and take the next step. But my job with her is to try and push her out of her comfort zone. And I think as well, that's where surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded, but also people that want to grow themselves is really good, because if you're seeing someone try different things, maybe fail, but still have a laugh about it, you grow quicker from failure than you do anything else, no matter what platform you choose to use.
Yeah, and I think the thing is if you can get brave in those spaces, even just a little bit, you will start to get those rewards usually of somebody. Because if you're posting something that feels vulnerable, it feels vulnerable because it's generally, because it's going to be coming from a place that's authentic and maybe a little raw, or maybe a little uncomfortable. Maybe you're being silly, and that's going to resonate with people. Like, the things that I've been the most scared to share or say or do in my business have been the things that people have been like, I'm so glad somebody's saying or talking about this or doing this or showing up this way.
Yep. I remember my dad, so before I went full-time self-employed, I was made redundant twice. And when I was made redundant the second time, I was looking at jobs and I was kind of trying to figure out, can I do this? So I gave myself from October to December with the business to see how that would work. And my dad's advice at the time was, you're so honest online, even though I didn't put everything out there. He was like, the stuff I'm seeing on LinkedIn and on your Instagram, you're so honest that employers are going to look at that and not going to want you because of that. That's actually ended up being the way I earn money in business. That authenticity. There are people out there that will pay to sit with me for an hour just to listen to me talk and like give them a bit of advice. And it's like, I know he was right in that context. If I was looking to work for someone else, there were people that were judging. And of course, that's always going to happen. However, that authenticity, especially whether you've got, like you said, the fact that you've already started a business means you're trying to solve some kind of a problem. So there's going to be someone out there that it does resonate with. And there'll be videos at the moment, like I'd post on TikTok where I go, and blog posts, people, when I stopped writing blog posts and like would take a break, I would get messages from people that I hadn't known that like they read my blogs. I didn't know even existed and had followed me for so long, and they were like, why have you stopped? Please carry on. The TikToks I post, the ones that go viral, are always the ones where I'm like, should I have said that? Oh, this is a bit like, it's a bit awkward. My like the biggest viral video I've got is because I started another page where I tried to show people might think that these social media platforms are saturated, but they're not. So I picked a specific one. I picked TikTok, and I said, right, I'm going to literally start one from scratch. Every day I'm going to teach you on my page, and you can then go and have a look at what I am doing on that page so that you can just replicate it. That, I think it's been going for about 35, 40 days. It's now my biggest viral video at 7.5 million, I think the last time I checked. And we've just got over 4,000 followers, which is ridiculous because it's growing. It's the quickest growing one, but that's my third TikTok account. And the video that went viral was me literally, I was like, oh, I need a quick idea, because again, I want my content to be as easy to create as possible because I don't always have the time. So I thought, what could I do? What I do is I practice on my partner how to create content, because if I can do it on him, he doesn't use socials, he hates social media, hates being in front of the camera. If I can get him to do something, I then say to clients, he's in the exact same boat, and if I can get him to do it, great. So the video was, I tell G to focus on me when we're taking pictures, because I know you're into Friends, but for people that haven't seen Friends, G is Chandler. You say to him, smile, like, oh my God, this is horrible. What am I doing? And we think he's slightly like, his neurospicy. We think that maybe he's got autism. So even in terms of like how he looks sometimes on camera, when he's like thinking about what you're doing, he just looks like he's empty, but actually he's thinking about what you're saying. So people would perceive that in however other ways they want to do that. Whereas when he looks at me when we're taking pictures and I give him the clicker, he forgets that the camera's there, and we get the cutest pictures ever, like the most natural pictures. And that's the one that went viral. But again, it was just me going, I just need a quick idea. Oh, it's a little bit cringe, but we'll see how it does. And that's now started a series that I wasn't expecting to start.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really, really good point. We touched on this, but we've talked about it's the sweet spot in marketing is what you are naturally good at, what's not going to take you loads and loads and loads and loads of time or energy or money, right? We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then what actually effing works, right?
Yeah.
So for years and years and years, I spent a lot of time on my Instagram account. I still do, but I don't actually produce much content for Instagram anymore. I just consume there mostly now and create stories. And I made this decision that the best thing for me was going to be to move to YouTube and LinkedIn, both of which have longer post lives. YouTube's a search engine. I get traction, I get comments, views, bookings from videos I created a year ago when I started really taking YouTube seriously. And the reason that works for me is this is my first like long form series on YouTube, but I can crank out a 10 to 15 minute tutorial on Squarespace or Asana on how to do something that people are searching for, that are looking for how to do this thing.
Yeah.
I can do that in my sleep. And I didn't always be able to, because there is a magic in learning to how to click around and teach what you're doing at the same time, like talking about it. Talking and clicking is hard. But once I learned how to do that through teaching my clients, trying a couple failed courses that I created, other things like that, I had that skill, and I can do it in my sleep. And so creating that video and getting that up on YouTube, and then taking that YouTube video, putting it on my website, putting the transcript on my website for SEO and accessibility is something that is so, so easy for me now.
Yeah.
And it works, as we've discussed. So I think it's that special magic. And the other thing that really works is that I've just tuned into is networking. And I'm looking for a global audience. Sometimes networking isn't easy to do that way, because I really thrive with in-person networking. But getting in the room, whether that be virtual or otherwise, is a huge piece for me. So you're absolutely fantastic at in-person networking, content creation, brand partnerships, all of this kind of stuff that you know so well. But I just want to make sure that the conversation stays that those aren't the only ways. You know,
Yeah.
I know some people that their entire marketing strategy is to go on other people's podcasts, have a really, really good freebie to
Yeah.
mention on those podcasts and get those people on their email list. That is their entire thing. That's all they do.
Yeah.
They're not on
Yeah.
socials anymore. They like have a social profile that they've got some like pinned posts so that people, if people show up, they can prove they are real and exist. But they are not active on social media. Like there are
Yeah.
so many ways to do this. And I
And
guess
actually,
my point, oh, you go.
so I was going to say, because whilst you're talking about that, you've inspired me to try going back into in-person networking, because I describe myself as an introverted extrovert. Once I'm used to being with someone, I'm okay. But when we had one of our brunches, I remember like sitting there and just thinking, I'm in this like group with people I really admire that really inspire me. And at one point, I didn't know all of you. So I had to get out of my own comfort zone to be able to do that. And when you talked about, like traveling to London, all these things that you were doing, I was like, if Ellie's doing it and she's like, she didn't always do this and she's gone to LinkedIn and done that, I can do this. I just need to plan that into my life where it feels effortless. Even if I just show up and I stay for 10-15 minutes, it's okay to then just leave. So I think you showed me that there's a way to do it that suits you. So stop trying to make it like the way other people do it and showing up and being this person in this room that other people are like you don't have to always be the loudest person in the room. Again, I don't even if you're not confident, find a room you're comfortable in and find a room that's going to push you. And if you're done with it, walk away.
Yeah, sometimes it's about finding the right, like you said, the right room with
Yeah.
the right people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, if those don't exist, it's about building the right room with the right people.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Chikuma and I are in a brunch club. We meet every other month. We're meeting next Friday.
Yeah.
And it is a women's brunch club for entrepreneurs who primarily don't have children. Like there's one
Yeah.
gal that has children, but she started her business before she had a kid.
Yeah.
So we're not like exclusive. But my point is I built that space because I couldn't find that space and I wanted
Yeah.
a space like that. So it also takes pushing yourself out of your bubble sometimes. I had still unpacking, a real complex of like letting myself be in rooms that were like really British because I felt like being a part of small business Britain is already a bit of a weird thing because Northern Ireland's not technically a part of Britain, right?
Yeah.
Like geographically.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact that I live on the island of Ireland and I'm American.
Yeah.
And so it's just like this whole space with things like that. I felt like, oh, wow, who am I to go to this House of Lords twice? Like, so, but
Amazing.
I pushed myself to apply for things like that. Like I applied this morning for the Small Business 100 for Small Business Saturday.
Love
And
that.
it's the only award I've applied for this year. Last year I did lots. But it's just about finding those marketing channels that aren't going to grate you totally or are going to
Yeah.
be sort of natural for you and where your people are hanging out. So I push
Yeah.
myself to, I don't really like LinkedIn, but I still try and show up there a little bit at least because I
Yeah.
know that small businesses are hanging out there. I still
Yeah.
show up a little bit at least on LinkedIn or on Instagram because I've already built community there.
Yeah.
And I love talking with that community, even if I'm not
Yeah.
posting all the time. So we've talked a little bit about all the different channels and how to choose that for yourself, but I want to hear about the tools people can use. And remember, so we've talked, well, first I want to say, before I get into that, it's really key to drive these channels and these things back to your website because your website needs to be your home base. So if
Yeah.
you are doing a newsletter, if you're doing a podcast, if you are doing this, all of that traction should be going to your website. So when I finish this video, I will upload it into my website and the podcast.
Yeah.
And when I share this video, I'm not sharing it direct to my YouTube usually. I'm probably sharing the version to my website, to my blog,
Yeah.
because I want people to go on my website and say, oh, she's got that cool freebie. Maybe I'll sign up for her quiz, end up
Yeah.
on my newsletter and be more connected with me. I want them to say, oh, what services does she offer? Or what other
Yeah.
information does she have on her blog?
Yeah.
I want them to spend more time building that trust and relationship with me. And that I think goes for any marketing channel. You're driving it back to your website, and you can be really strategic in how you do that.
Yeah.
So I know people that have, that's what a link tree is. I always build those directly on somebody's website as opposed to through Linktree, because you want to be able to own that traffic and
Yeah.
to analyze that traffic without Linktree's paid plan, right? Um, so it's those types of things to be thinking about. These you're building towards pushing people to your website because it's your home base. And then
Yeah.
from there, they will probably, hopefully, take actions further, whether that be buying your thing or taking another step into connecting with you, like, say, your newsletter or more content, or you're
Yeah.
following your social medias if they have found you on LinkedIn, but they actually hang out on Instagram and maybe they click on your Instagram link, etc. So, okay. So, what are some of your favorite marketing tools? I know this is like a Pandora's box question. Like, there's so many, I'm guessing. And again, there's so many for all these different things.
Yeah.
Sorry. One last thing. You were talking about how networking, that was my last point before we get to tools. And this is a tool, but I actually, because I know in-person networking is one of my strengths and I'm good at it, but it's hard to remember to get out there.
Yeah.
I have a task set for every other Friday in my Asana that has all the links to places to check for events. So it's got Eventbrite, LinkedIn events, Google events, Facebook events, etc., all with all the keywords and stuff. Like, it's filtered so it's already the right page for entrepreneurs or meetups and things. And then I can just go in and sign up for events, and I only have to do it every other week to, like, check for women in businesses events. And I can even outsource that to a VA if I wanted to say, check if my calendar's free, book me in.
Yeah. Honestly, and this is why I'm going to be paying you for systems, because it's stuff like that I just need to have in one place and just go, it's done, it's there. Because even the thought of, I think before we come on to like the tools, for me, it's everything that can be done. And like you said, it's a Pandora's box. There's so much out there that it quickly becomes overwhelming. So even when you know the things that you should be doing and you've done it for quite a long time, you then go, oh, but I'm like, this is what I do. I shouldn't be getting overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed all the time. All the time. Yeah. That's when I then realized, like, this week I wasn't feeling well. So my thing is, if I'm overwhelmed, feeling stressed, anything's happening, I sit and look and go, I've not built the right system in place, because I shouldn't. I know obviously it's a natural part of life. You will feel that. But like you said, when you're going through the different phases of lives and you're having to pivot in a relationship or whatever else is going on, subconsciously our brain is constantly taking on so much that when you do what you do, especially in marketing, you are looking at billboards as you're driving going, oh, that one's a good one. I like the way that they've looked at the pictures. So you're constantly working without thinking, whether it's offline or online, you're constantly on. So yes, I always try to look at that and go, if I'm feeling overwhelmed right now and I'm feeling stressed, what could I do for future me to make life easier? And it's things like you just said, where it just pops up every once in a while. Where is it? Oh no, I think it's downstairs. And this sounds so sad, but for me and G, I've started creating a folder. And that folder has everything we talk about for our lives and in business, because I know we might not want to be involved in the business day to day, but if something was to happen to me, something needs to happen within the business to keep going, because we've got clients. If I'm looking to take a step out of it, someone needs to know, and my team know the logins to everything and so on. Yesterday, I lost every single one of my passwords on LastPass because I'm leaving a client and they accidentally deleted my LastPass, not realizing it wasn't the work one, because I was one of their first contractors. So I have lost absolutely everything. But because I always send everything to my team.
That's so stressful.
Yeah. And honestly, I was so stressed. I was like, I don't have time to sit and cry about this. So what could I do to make sure in the future it's set up? So I spoke to the team this morning and said, as long as they still got access, because I send everything to them on their own. So I get them all to create personal accounts for work as VAs. And that's where I share everything, so that if I need to remove access or anything's gone, it's done anyway. But I share it so that they can't see the passwords or anything. So I'm affected. They're not affected. But yeah, it can quickly.
That's how my business pretty much works as well. Yeah. But I think the thing is with overwhelm, there are so many things that can kick it off. It could be you've accidentally taken on a little more work than you really can handle. It could be that one project is more demanding than you expected it to be. It could be life coming in the way, family or personal circumstances. It could be, I experienced a few months ago that I for those of you who don't know, TMI Tuesday, but I think this shouldn't be a TMI. It's on a Friday also. But is I started having a hormonal cycle again. And I realized that there's some things I cannot do the week of my period. Like I
Yeah.
cannot. And being able to know that I should schedule those for the week after has made a massive,
Yeah.
massive difference.
Same.
So overwhelm is you're right, it's a natural part of life, but knowing how to plan for it, knowing, okay, I can drop a couple of things off the list this week, I can bump them to next week. And that's where systems really, because in mine, I literally just reschedule a date in Asana.
Yeah.
And it's like, there it is to remind me on Monday. And it's so, so easy. So yeah, marketing can feel really overwhelming because it's like running a business while trying to attract new business is this
Yeah.
seesaw, and you're
Yeah.
never going to get it 100% right.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're just a little bit too much heads down. But the thing is you have to do both. Otherwise you end up in that feast and famine cycle, right? Like you have to be attracting new work while you're doing your existing work.
Exactly.
So tools, let's talk tools.
Oh, Asana, thanks to you, is one of the tools. And like you've said, even just breaking stuff down. And but what so what stresses me on Asana is we've started to build it out, but I realized that I could sit and learn it all. And I think that's one of the things I've realized in business. I can do it all. I've proven I can, but I don't want to do it all. I don't have the time to do it all. So the basics of Asana have been done. That's one of the things that I want to work with you to make sure like it's done in a way that makes sense, even like for the team. TikTok is one of the tools that I use. And I know it's just for the sake of, I realized that when the algorithm learns you as a person and your mind, sometimes it suggests things that you don't even realize have been on your mind because you've interacted with some kind of content in some kind of way. So I realized that for me personally, TikTok is one of those places where I will once in a while get marketing emails where people are talking about, like, what was the other one I was looking at the other day? Things like AI, the best way to integrate AI in business. I've been using things like ChatGPT for a while anyway, and different forms of AI, but rather than me getting overwhelmed and trying to figure it all out, that's a tool that I can, as a search engine, I use that. I then go to Google if I need to then break it down even more. I will then go to YouTube and watch, because I'm a visual person. I can't sit and read, doesn't work. I like to use for things like scheduling. I have a team that does the scheduling anyway, but we like to schedule on the platforms. So I will use things like the Meta Business Suite and see the information that it gives me. When coming up with things like ideas, I had a client the other day that it's like an AI tool called MEM, or like MEM, it's MEMAI, and it's like you put in like your notes and it finds a way to categorize that so that whether it's a written note or a voice note, like I said, I've got a folder because I realized I had notes everywhere. Just here, I can see 3 notebooks. How am I supposed to remember what I've put in what notebook? So I looked at that and thought, oh, this is a good idea, because no matter what I'm talking about, whether it's life or business, and because mine then there's an intersection somewhere, that works for me where I can then get it categorized in one place. I love to use things like even for like when I'm creating content and I'm putting ideas down, I will have I've got like I started with a notes list and then realized this isn't working. So I created a WhatsApp group where it could just be me in the WhatsApp group and I'm sending myself ideas of content I can create, or things I can, like blogs I can be writing, or we've got one with a team so that it might not be their job to do something specific. However, like for example, creating content. But I realized that within my team, we're all, again, like you've said, everyone is multi-passionate anyway, but we all consume things in a slightly different way. That I realized if we put all our ideas in one place and see, like they'll give me advice on where they think that we could be doing better in terms of sales, in terms of content, in terms of whatever else. So WhatsApp is a great tool where we just chuck links in and go, this is a great idea that we can look at in the future or look at now.
And that's my worst nightmare, just to say. So like there's a couple of things I want to say about that. Like, so there are so many tools to be used in marketing. So Chikumo and I both running very successful businesses, doing it in totally different ways. Obviously I use Asana as well. My team uses Slack because I hate things on my phone, and I love that I can mute Slack for specific hours. I do not like anything that is work to be in my WhatsApp or anything like that. And that's like a slight exaggeration because obviously like our brunch chat's in there and we would say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm having this problem in my business, like who has any thoughts? Um, but it's but like that's not a really, really busy chat. If it were, I would feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
um I for my business, I also schedule out most of my social media posts. I've been toying with the idea of doing it primarily on the native platforms because they typically would perform better
Yeah.
if you do, but I still use later because I love it. I love that there's this visual media bank
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
everything and I can reuse things, I can repurpose things. It's got all my
Yeah.
posts for years and multiple platforms that I can pull from. I've been
Yeah.
using later for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So I've like got like thousands
Yeah.
of
It's a great platform.
media in there. Um, I for podcasting, I use Anchor, which is I think now called Spotify Podcasts. They changed, rebranded.
Oh,
It was owned by Spotify already, but they just rebranded the name. Obviously, I say Squarespace for websites.
yeah.
Typically, unless you are heavily, heavily product based, and then I say Shopify.
Yeah.
Using the tools that suit what you do, and that's the thing that I get like tools is like my bag, right? Because I get so
Yeah.
like there's no one best solution for any business.
Yeah.
So you should be using what's going to suit you and the way your brain works and the way your business works and the way your clients work.
Yeah.
So that's that. But if you are thinking about marketing and you're like, I want to try podcasting or I want to figure out an email list or I want to do this, comment below. Chikumo and I
Yeah.
will set you up with what we think is the best.
Yeah. Because even like what you were saying in terms of like the things that make you overwhelmed, um, like you said, I've used later and I loved later, but I just realized that between me and the team, they're all similar to me. So we need one place we can access, and it's G Drive. So we currently have one VA that will look at every bit of content that we've done on like the business page. We have it as an Excel sheet and then folders where we can see what's been I know we're talking about like repurposing, but we'll look at when something's gone out, has it been repurposed, can it be repurposed? Because again, trying to think of new ideas for content doesn't work. I don't have the time to sit and think about how everything needs to look as well. So it means that I can leave the team to be autonomous and go, okay, we've used this one here. We'll update the form because one of them just loves creating Excel sheets, and I love it because I can tell her what to do. And although I don't like sitting there and I like it when it looks really pretty and it's all organized, but the putting it together, I'm like, I can't do this. She loves it. So when we look through, she's got drop down menus, she's got who's been in to update something, where the notes bit's done. So it's exactly the same situation you've got on later. We've just got it on G Drive. And like
Yeah.
you're saying, even in terms of like how we use WhatsApp, because we're in different time zones, WhatsApp ends up being easier. And some of them have found it a bit difficult with Asana because I'm not great at checking Asana. I've had to be really good at doing that since I had the last VA because her job is to make sure that I want to see what's outstanding with everyone. So I always say to the team, unless you've got a deadline, work whenever you want. As long as it's done by Sunday, you choose the hours that you work. However, on a Friday, I want to have an idea of when things are going to be like what I might need to jump in on or where we might need to ask someone else to jump in and help with. So rather than me go and look through Asana, she just sends an update in one of the WhatsApp groups and we can see what's outstanding so I can see how it is. But I've had to learn to explain my thought process to the team so work out, is this really the most efficient way to be doing it? What other way can we do it? And then someone might go and do some research on other tools that we can then bring in, because it's everything from, like we were talking earlier about how we create captions. A lot of my clients at the moment are based down south or in England rather than the north. So creating content and editing on CapCut is great, but some of them want it to look a slightly different way. So captions is another one that we use, but captions doesn't always pick up the accent and doesn't allow us to edit the way that CapCut does. So even having like a plan A and plan B for the systems that we do use and the tools that we've got, that's also something we've had to build in.
The interesting thing is that your tools, I think that's when every business starts really struggling with tools, is when you start outsourcing and you start growing your team, because things that were in your head can't be in your head. And I'm so good at that. I am all over that. That is my whole but okay, so we've talked a little bit about this already, but I want our last bit of this conversation to be around how to repurpose content, because here's the thing I just want to say is, realistically, when you're saying your message, you're telling your story and selling your thing, you are pretty much repeating yourself. Yeah, you're going to find different ways to say it. You might say different channels or different mediums to say it over time. I know there's things that I have created a blog post on that became an IGTV, that became a podcast,
Yeah.
that became a YouTube, that
Yeah.
have been a reel. Like there's certain things that you say over and over again in your business. And most of the time, I mean, first off, you can sort of get sick of saying it, but at the same time,
Yeah.
people need to hear it.
Yeah.
There's that whole thing of like 7 points of contact or whatever. But how do you balance repurposing? And then I want to tie that into the conversation of how to, like, my favorite little pyramid here, which is time, energy, and money, right? Like how to
Yeah.
choose where to spend those intentionally when it comes to marketing and your website.
Funnily enough, I had a client I worked with when I first started freelancing, and he calls it a task triangle. So he, like you said earlier, you said I will sometimes be doing that, the high level or the higher level of what needs to be done. But like you've said, when you look at, so for example, I've got an idea to put out some form of content. That idea is my higher level, but who then needs to fit in that? Like who's going to create the content? Who's going to post it? Who's going to do whatever else? I might be able to do all of that, but time and money wise, like my hourly, I've had to write it down to remind me, my hourly rate is £65. Do I need to be spending 10 minutes figuring out where to post the content? No, because I have a team member whose job it literally is just make sure everything's posted and everything looks correct. So yes, I could jump on and do that, but those 5-10 minutes every other day add up to maybe an hour. And if I've not earned anything in that, it's like, okay, what am I doing? One of the things I've started going back to is I am using Hubstaff to go back in time where I'm spending most of my time. Because yes, I might enjoy creating content, but that's not what I should be doing all the time because I need to get sales in.
Ooh, I love time tracking. I did that for years in my business. I still recommend if you are feeling overwhelmed, start tracking your time.
Yeah.
One of the things I discovered by time tracking is that I spent almost as much time marketing my business as I did on client work. Whether that be on social media or in person or what any of these means, which meant that I need to start essentially billing enough money to pay for my marketing time, right? And it's things like that that you learn when you start managing your time and tracking your time.
Exactly. And because I've been then looking at my time again and thinking about just what am I enjoying doing at the moment? And I realized that because for a long time I was trying not to just be the person that was on the CFM page because I want people to get used to the fact that I've got a team. But out of my whole team at the moment, except for the next person I'm hopefully looking to hire, no one else likes really being in front of the camera. Doesn't mean that no one else is in front of the camera, but that's my forte. So if I'm going to spend time creating that type of content, I've realized that if I want to repurpose things, it's not putting in date specific things in the content as well. If it's I'm trying to focus now on evergreen content. I realized that, like you've said, I repeat myself a lot in terms of the advice I use for content creation. So my plan, so today's my last day with one of the clients, but for next week I've got it in from Monday. That 30 days I did for that challenge, I started it knowing it's not going to be perfect. I still need to figure out a way that I'm going to do this. And eventually I want that to be something that people can buy and just work through it themselves. But for the sake of it being free and someone seeing I can do what I'm telling them to do, I got a client from that. And it's, like I said, it's not perfect. So when I spend time looking through that, I'm going to look through that and go, okay, how can I make this now look polished? Because for, like you said, in places like LinkedIn, I can't just show up in my onesie because I know my audience. That's not going to work on there. However, on maybe some of the other platforms, I can be really relaxed. I've created this space to know that I've got an area where I can show up, whether it's just picking up my camera or it's set and I know what I'm doing. I know that the backdrop in here is always going to be, it's going to always be well. So whether I want to do a podcast, content creation, whatever that's going to be. And then in terms of then repurposing that, it's just me then going, okay, what message have I sent? And one of the ideas I've got at the moment with the team is have a video version of that and have something that will be a pictorial version of what you're saying. So whether it's a carousel post, whether it's an image, because it then means that when we are thinking of ideas, next time it's just going to be, how can we make that better? Because again, your socials, your website, your analytics are going to tell you what's working and what's not. So
Exactly.
my dad's always said, don't reinvent the wheel, just make your version better. So I go back and always look at that. And that's why I always say that I draw the show up imperfectly first and then work on it, because when you get that feedback, what might work for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So if I'm trying to look at your content and thinking, oh, Ellie's website's amazing, I need to get there. If I did that, I wouldn't have had a personal website. My power hours, people go onto there and book power hours without me having to do anything. And I've got work because I'm multi-passionate, I do MPD and product development work. I'm a photographer, and I'm really good at doing, especially in food styling, that type of stuff. I might not get loads of that work, but someone might go on that website and go, I've come here for a power hour, but I've realized that actually I know someone that has a foodie business that needs a bit of help in styling and whatever else. And that's just a catalogue. And that started off as a one-page website that's now, I've realized, I now need to move that to somewhere like Squarespace so that I can really start the SEO side of it, making sure that's perfect. Because if I'm really good on socials and that side of it is working, but I'm not utilizing it, what am I like? How can I make
that's another whole marketing thing we didn't touch on? I will have to do a full video on SEO because it's especially with websites, it is a huge piece, but it's also a long-term game.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so. Repurposing, especially looking at your metrics and seeing which posts are people are engaging with, and then like I said, reusing that content. I purposely cross post. I write my newsletter. My newsletter is my most vulnerable piece of content I create. I am just nearly raw. Like I literally handwrite journal when I write my newsletter because I want it to be as like that type of content. And then I from there will take pieces of it and put it on social media and things like that, and usually polish it a little. Again, because LinkedIn. But I also try and keep things as authentic. I swear in most of my content. But on LinkedIn, I might say effing instead of actually putting the words. So it gives the idea that I swear without being so unprofessional of actually putting a full F-bomb.
But it's not unprofessional as well, because I think that's what we're trained to think.
I know. But like you said, like I had to laugh when you were talking about your dad saying that you were essentially putting so much out there you become unemployable, because I think I've done that in a way. Like I say at least once a year I get in a little bit of a running a business is so hard, I'm just going to apply for jobs. And I know that it's just like a therapeutic thing, but also very few times do I make it even through the first round now because of two things. One is like I've been self-employed for 5 years. People know that I'm not going to probably easily slot back into corporate life. And second thing is that type of thing. Like I'm me online. It doesn't mean that I couldn't ever get a job. Like I know that I would be employable again if I wanted to make myself employable again. But I don't. So yes, this has been a long-winded, rambling conversation, as are all of these. But just to summarize, marketing in its simplest form is telling your story and using that story to sell something. Deciding what marketing options work really well for you is pretty much knowing that trio of what you're good at, what's not going to take you tons of time or headspace, and what's going to work. Tools, it's an infinite ball game, but again, asking. I think that's a huge thing. I used to run a business called the Capable Collective, and the whole basis was on tying into that, or like digging into that collective wisdom, asking people who know things. Ask me. That's like literally my whole. I would be thrilled. How to be overwhelmed is outsourcing, being intentional with your time, money, energy, creating a plan, to creating boundaries. Like there's so many things around that, but just being really mindful and not trying to do everything. That's probably the biggest thing. Not trying to do everything in terms of your business, but not trying to do everything in terms of marketing. You do not need to have every single engine firing at once to have a successful business. Authenticity, we talked about, being yourself, whatever that means. And you can be yourself and be in your onesie on TikTok, but you can be yourself and be not in your onesie on LinkedIn, and those are both you, and that's fine. But being true to who you are, and repurposing content and repeating yourself
Yeah.
And using your analytics and using your data are really important, but also not only because they're going to get your message out really consistently, but because they are going to save you time and energy. The other thing that I do sometimes, bringing this back to, so first of all, calls to action in all these marketing channels, right?
Yeah.
To your website. And then also, that I was going to say is, oh, I've lost it, but essentially was going to say on your website, like it was something about your website and your marketing. Oh, I sometimes pull content. I've taken the time to really thoughtfully at the start of the year work through all of my copywriting. Copywriting is not something that comes super naturally to me. I use a
Yeah.
really good resource called Promptlets by Just Jordana, and she works you through a lot of creative writing and helps you then take your
Brilliant.
own words, not like they're not templates, to create really good content. But
Yeah.
anyway, because my content for the first time in my business on my website sounds so much like me, because it is, and is filled with my personality, I take that and put it
Yeah.
directly on my socials with calls to action.
That's what I do for clients as well, because a lot of them I work with, it's personal branding. So like you've said, your website should be you. It should have you on it. Everything down to the pictures that are used, the copy that's used, they're all social posts. I always say that. And I'm like, you forget that like that website isn't there. Like, and I think a lot of people make the mistake of going, oh, the website will do its own thing. But socials now use SEO. So if people are searching for an answer, give them as many options as you can from your website to your socials to whatever else to find you. And then they'll click on whatever suits them as a person. But for you,
Yeah.
make it easy on yourself that everything should be duplicated in these places. And I always say as well, what you've got on your website when you introduce yourself, on things like your socials, have them as pinned so that straight away people get a feel of who you are, what you do, what services you have, so that even when you are repeating yourself, it's always going to be in a slightly different way anyway, but
Yeah.
make it easy on yourself.
Yeah, that's what, like, so some social medias make that fairly easy already to, you can have highlight reels, you have pinned
Yeah.
posts.
Yeah.
I have like a 9 grid on my social media, on my Instagram, because I stopped wanting to create posts for the grid. But like I said, everything needs to drive back to your website, because it's the only corner of the internet that you can 100% own. You do not probably own who hosts your email newsletter. You do not own social media. You do not own your wherever your podcast lives. Probably you probably own that content. But like Spotify podcast could close tomorrow,
Yeah.
and who would be distributing me to Google and all the other things? Like, so it's really important that your website is yours.
Yeah.
And that you back things up.
Oh God, yes. I had that once with the blog and nearly lost everything. So I got my friends to, because I didn't know what I was doing at all. And yeah, always back it up.
Yes. Okay, so this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Thanks for having me. So I had a rebrand, and on most platforms on Chikumo F. But for some reason, someone decided to take my name, even though I'm the only person in the world with my name. And on Twitter and the blog, I'm a Diary of a Chick. So CHIK if it's a Diary of a Chick, or Chikumo F on absolutely everything. And my website is literally my name, chikumofiseko.com. And you will find links to every single thing I do on there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
Bye, everyone.